Hello, welcome to Open Business Council Summit Day 2. Thank you all for being participants and assisting today, both the viewers and the panelists. I'm glad to be moderating this panel between such recognized characters and looking forward to creating and bringing value to the ecosystem within this hour of protagonism. This time, our panel's main topic is about how blockchain and 4AR can transform traditional business, government, and impact the market's ecosystems in the future. Today we have aligned the multidisciplinary panel very decentralized, having Neil Milliken, that is an Atos representative on the Business Disability Forum Technology Task Force. Previously, he worked at Landsys, one of the largest providers of integrated assistive technology solutions in the UK, and he's leading accessibility ventures and initiatives around the globe. We have also Ludovic Corselas talking from France. Ludovic is a government strategy lead at Consensus, a blockchain company, and he has led the EU Blockchain Observatory and Forum, a major research initiative of the European Commission that aims at analyzing blockchain use cases and setting up a coherent regulatory framework in the continent. We have also Eloisa Marchesoni from Italy, that is actually in New York now. Eloisa is co-founder and CEO of Blockchain and known as a consultant in the blockchain and AI space. Moreover, she's an influential author of articles for major national and international newspapers on the same topics, and a recognized token model architect, fintech leader, and influencer. Felix Mago from Thailand. He's an expert on DeFi, crypto payments, and decentralized businesses. And he's the co-founder of multiple entities within Dash, where he drives BizDev and partnerships, and establishes the first crypto payment ecosystem in Asia. So we can see that all the occupancies vary from business to product, technology, to strategy, accessibility. And to give a bit of background to this panel, the idea is today talking about 4AR technologies and especially blockchain because they are revolutionizing the way that fintech technology used to be. However, the future of blockchain is a lot more than Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, or fintech. Blockchain tech is impacting every major area of business, from finance and accounting to operations and logistics. And it has the potential to transform organizations, businesses, nations, and the way we interact with each other. So now I would like the different panelists to introduce yourselves to have a better understanding on how your career experience and current occupations touch blockchain, digital transformation, and 4AR, government strategy, governance, inclusion, accessibility, sustainability, the startup ecosystem, future markets, and COVID. I invite all the viewers to share the panel in their socials with the hashtag OBC Summit. And I would like to start with Eloisa. So please go ahead and give us a bit of your background.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks to the Open Business Council Summit for having me. Thank you, Leon, for the intro. So basically, if we're talking about career experience, mine's pretty short, but very intense. We all know that in this disruption industry, only a couple months can be worth a couple years. And I started out going to the Italian equivalent of an American Ivy League, Bocconi University. I was studying finance, economics, and management. And it was around the time that all the ICOs started coming out and actually started and the bubble around these new token offerings popped like any other financial bubble. And so that's where I decided to sort of create the role of the token architect, specifically the token model, starting to approach all the startups that had great projects, but that were in danger of not being able to well express how the value would have been created among all the actors of the ecosystem and how it would have been shared, and lastly how these tokens would have represented a unit of such value. And so I started using my university studies, applying those to these new disruptive ecosystems, and it was actually not hard to see that basically the same models would fit with just a little tweaks. And I came out there as being listed as top of these new token model architects. And I went from there, from the startups to the bigger projects, and eventually to being noticed by the traditional businesses that um, were at the contrary, at the other end of the spectrum. They had the capital and they needed to innovate, and that's how my consulting activity basically got and fell under the category of innovation management consulting. That's what I'm doing right now. Yes, still for the traditional businesses, more for the institutions. That's actually why I had the pleasure to be, to come here to the US in such hard times, not only because I'm also a US citizen, not just an Italian one, but also in Trump Tower because I am speaking to, and I was speaking to Trump administration. We're going to do great things. And on top of that, I am also working with projects that are in DeFi right now, which seems to be the new buzzword. I'm seeing a lot of over leveraging of funds. I hope it's not a new bubble. What we learned with the ICOs for sure will come handy now. But these projects are of my great interest because they really do help mass adoption. They really are decentralized, and they seem to answer to a question, whether to go on the Bitcoin blockchain or on Ethereum. And well, the Ethereum seems to be the one that, with the smart contracts, really can be used even in the government and in the PA fields. So that's a bit about myself and what I'm doing right now.
Thank you, Eloisa. Felix, what do you want? Do you want to go next? Sorry.
Sure. Thank you very much for the intro already. Great to be here with you all, guys. My name is Felix Mago from Dash, specifically Dash Next, which is one entity in the decentralized Dash ecosystem. Dash, for all of you who don't know, stands for Digital Cash. We are one of the very old projects out there, started in 2014. And as the name tells, we are very focused on crypto payments, on crypto mass adoption. And I think we have been driving that a lot for the last years. I mean, especially considering, crypto payments is one of the first use cases out there, and everybody was talking about that before things became so crazy, as Eloisa just elaborated. But there's a lot happening in blockchain, and I'm super proud being part of that. You mentioned DeFi and being a hype or not. From my perspective, this year, 2020, a lot has changed in blockchain. Number one, we see so many projects finally build something that is working. It's not only a fantasy anymore. It's not only a concept of on a piece of paper. It's many things, many projects that are working, and by working, they have the potential to work together. And this is where things getting really, really interested. And this is why now we're talking about money, Legos, and new building blocks. I think Dash also fits very much into that. And I want to mention 4 things we are really focused on. And maybe one thing first, I said I work for Dash Next. So Dash is completely decentralized. We don't have one, headquarter or a corporate entity like everybody is used to. We have a DAO that is distributing funds in the background, and everybody can pitch for these funds. And with that, we have established kind of teams all around the world. In Asia is where I am based with Dash Next, Dash Philippines, Dash Thailand. So very much focused on business development, on partnerships, and really mass adoption. But we have teams like Dash Core in the US or in Latin America, even in Africa. So like I said, we are focused on 4 things that go along the lines I just made the intro, that things come and work together. I think number 1 is that we still focus on building this merchant ecosystem. And again, we have established a lot. In fact, you can pay with Dash at thousands of merchants. And if we take also the multiplicators like hotel platforms, we are talking about in the millions, right? You can book millions of hotels or airlines or a lot of things. Number two is that we have a special feature called Instant Send, which enables essentially instant transactions. So driven by Dash Core Group, we have established or just launched something called the Fast Pass Network that where we brought together partners to integrate that features. And what it does now is that you can send Dash in lightning speed around the world, which is especially, or obviously especially interesting for everything trading. So if you can send your cryptocurrency from exchange to exchange and have it instantly confirmed without waiting for X block times, and I've seen sometimes waiting for a week for something to arrive, it's a huge thing, and especially a huge thing if you are using all this new stuff and leveraging up and margin trading and everything. Number three is that we, or especially me and personally, because I really fell into the DeFi rabbit hole this year and think it's friggin' amazing what's happening there, and wrapping your head around that is simply is so excited that I cannot sleep anymore sometimes. And you know, the way I see it is that also what I said before, it's really building bridges, and it enables different blockchains now to come together and build things together, if you will. Take the example of wrapped Bitcoin and see the amount of wrapped Bitcoin that is now traded on Ethereum and that is staked in DeFi projects, and also by having these bridges, in this case the wrapped asset enables you to go back and forth and to do many things. The same we want to go build with Dash right now, and this is what I'm focused on, and this leverages then on number 4. We are about to release Dash platform, the first release. Super proud that this is coming really in the next days and weeks. And what it enables is decentralized cloud storage, decentralized APIs, and some simple things are supposed to be simple and user things like usernames, so you can send Dash around by just having a contact list in your telephone. So I think these are all exciting things, and super excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you very much, Felix. And yeah, I completely agree that interoperability is one of the keys in order to allow the ecosystem to grow. Ludovic, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to have this discussion with all of you today. So my name is Ludovic. I'm governance strategy lead at Consensus. Consensus, for those who don't know, is a blockchain software company that has been founded in 2014 by Joe Lubin, who is also the co-founder of Ethereum. And so Consensus, as a software company, is composed of many engineers, 500 today, and blockchain experts that are gathered all around the world. We are the largest blockchain pure player in the world, and we focus on deploying blockchain software for big corporations, for governments, and for startups. What we do is mainly building infrastructure software for the decentralized web. And so, for example, some of our products like Infura, which is today the main gateway to the Ethereum network, with billions of calls that are being handled through Infura. We have MetaMask, which is the most popular Ethereum wallet. We have a protocol team that is dedicated to working on the Ethereum protocol, and that is responsible for the development of the Quorum Ethereum client. We also build software that is targeted to developers. Our Truffle suite is used by more than 80,000 developers around the globe. And also, finally, we build software for corporations and governments that is more targeted into for specific industries, such as, for example, global trade, financial services, DeFi. And so our clients include the biggest organizations and governments in the world. And so myself at Consensus, I've been responsible for the last 2 years of the EU Blockchain Observatory and Forum. The Consensus has been appointed by the European Commission to run this project, which was basically a research project, looking into blockchain use cases and the legal and regulatory framework in order to make Europe the best place for the development of the technology. And so as part of these activities, I'm also the author of multiple reports on decentralized identity and blockchain in general that were targeted at looking at the regulation and also at the specific use cases. That's what I can say in a few words.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think what you're doing in Consensus of creating different tools for developers and allowing the ecosystem to have the right tools is quite amazing, and the way that you're fighting against the regulations and creating frameworks is also amazing. So thank you very much. Neil, please go ahead and give us a little bit of your background.
Thank you very much. So I'm globally responsible for accessibility and inclusion at Atos. We're a what you would traditionally call a systems integrator. We're a digital transformation organization. We build systems from systems. We've got 110,000 people worldwide, 74 different countries that we operate in. We do everything from landing space probes on comets for the European Space Agency to doing the IT for the Olympics and Paralympics to more mundane stuff like making sure people's sort of day-to-day workplace experience works. Now, I'm interested in changing the way that we utilize technology to make our societies a lot more inclusive. We've got an aging population, 20%, 15 to 20% of that population around the globe have a disability. That's going to grow as populations age. So there's a huge economic benefit for individuals and for the planet and societies when we build technology that works for everyone. And so the fourth industrial revolution and things like distributed ledger technologies have a role to play in making sure that we do include people as we build our new society. And I think that the sort of shift that we've seen and the adoption of new tech, particularly in the space around sort of how we're working right now, has actually been a real eye-opener for a lot of organizations, and that this is something that the disability community had actually been adopted a long time ago around flexible working and so on. So there's an awful lot of challenges that we face as a lot of people with disabilities use tech to access other tech and services. And so one of the challenges that we face right now is making sure that all of that stuff works together. So particularly focused on standards, open standards and interoperability, because it's when you have open standards and clear ways of making stuff work together that we're leveling the playing field and making it possible for people to participate in society. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
And it's quite amazing. So thank you for that. So I want to start a round of questions because I'm really interested in what you said individually. So Eloisa, given your 360-degree vision on the global blockchain industry market, you're involved in like several different projects and being recognized as an influencer in fintech, blockchain, AI, and also travel around the world. What do you think are the characteristics of blockchain that has the bigger potential to transform and impact the markets of today, that is actually transforming, and of the future?
Yeah, so I think it is the one and only transparency that we were all actually looking for since the beginning, and that this mysterious guy Satoshi was trying to give to us, or gift us, I'd say. And I mean, it's hard to only choose one characteristic. I would also say that blockchain is very important because it sort of shifts, especially in governmental environments, the trust from a central authority, a political party, an idea, a person, to the technology. You know, I don't really like to say that it works in trustless ecosystems. I just like to say that it's a shift of trust. And the matter now, I think, is to just be patient and sort of wait until we get to a more specific state of the technology itself, where we can stop asking ourselves so many questions about it, and let it become the new standard, just like the HTML became the new standard years ago with the internet revolution. I'd love, when I'll have kids, that they will use their smart devices and their applications and not even have to worry about whether or not they're running on blockchain and which kind of protocol. But I think it's transparency that I love the most. For now, for sure, not speed of transaction or speed of recording the transaction, and I leave improvements of that part and all other technicalities to guys like Felix, or the guys at Consensus. And that's why we all need collaboration. I myself, you keep mentioning that I'm an influencer, and yet, I myself am not really clear about what kind of role that really is, but I just kind of go with the flow. And what I like doing as an influencer is to aid the integration of disruptive technologies with the institutions, because I am not as much a crypto anarchist, even if you look where I come from, but I am very much all about seeing an ecosystem where I can be able to speak to the vice president of JP Morgan and not have him, still be so dazzled about the concept of blockchain, even though they do have, their coins. But I'm speaking about the real stuff here. So yeah, I'd say if I have to choose one, it's transparency.
And from these projects that you're working now, that you came to the US and so on, which one of them do you think has the biggest potential, and why? And it's about transparency as well?
So I think, I'm working on a very nice project, and actually it stemmed from Italy. It's called DT Circle, and they are using tokens as units of value that represent the big data generated by the users in the network. And they've been acquiring lots of patents, and also just recently came out with an application that is a real encrypted chat and call application, and that is what actually the Trump administration was interested in adopting. It was one of their points in the program. So that project is the one that I have been bringing to many events, panels, as an example, even having the founder speak with me. Right now, I'm very highly selective on the projects that I represent. Reputation is very important, especially because I am an influencer in the scene. But yeah, and what is important in that project is that blockchain is what it runs on, but it's not even that the founder is talking so much about it. What is really important is that it's aiding the mass adoption, and that people in their network, in their ecosystem, are actually using these tokens and becoming aware of the big data generated, how it's being used, if they want to sell it or not, and then using the tokens to actually carry out their daily activities and purchasing stuff. So yeah,
that's amazing. And talking about blockchain being massive, right? Felix, you have been quite active creating solutions for mass adoption of crypto and blockchain technology, particularly in Southeast Asia, right? But so what are the most important projects in decentralization that you have seen that are reaching this end, and what challenges are they facing in your eyes?
Also referring a bit to my previous speakers, I strongly believe, and the more I am in blockchain and trying to drive mass adoption, I realize I'm super excited about it. I love it. I'm so deep into it, and you know, I cannot. I'm enjoying even getting another podcast when I'm in the gym. I can't even stop and listen to another crypto podcast. But I realize this is me, and actually, it's not everybody out there in the world. And there's many people, and we are actually a big minority right now. This is one thing. The other thing is blockchain is, at the end of the day, business as usual. And if you want to grow a company, you have to grow a company, and you have to get people that use your products or that in some way does a business. So the question, is it blockchain or not, is kind of irrelevant for most people who are not in blockchain. And now coming to what you said, we have driven mass adoption. So this was a lesson I learned, and I had to learn the way by going there in a very design research focused method, going out there, explaining what we do. Hey, you can accept crypto payments and all that, and ended up in a sales pitch that actually works a million times better if I don't even mention the word crypto, but just go there and say, hey, listen, we have an alternative payment solution. You can save money. It's super fast. You can immediately transfer the Dash to your local currency because we have a third party who can help you with there. There is a company who makes business doing that. And you can connect it. It's kind of risk-free. So do you want it or not? And if at end, it doesn't cost you anything if you install it because it's an open source software. You can just use it for free. And the moment you go in there with that kind of pitch, instead of saying, hey, we do crypto, you can be your own money, you don't need third parties, censorship resistance and everything. This is all amazing, but as a sales pitch, the other version worked much better for driving adoption, especially when you want to work with corporations. And then it goes up the ladder. Obviously, the bigger the corporation, the more the compliance and the more the things they are scared of, and they want to ensure before it starts. So I mean, just taking this case of crypto payments, it's very essential that you go out with end-to-end solutions and not just sell some nerdy stuff you can potentially do, but you have to take care all yourself. So this is one big aspect. The other thing, and also adding a bit to what Neil said, this is amazing. I also come from this background of innovation management, and was helping big banks to upgrade their tech stacks and like being the middle part between business and technology. At the end of the day, it's a really hard challenge, especially if you are an established company, to take this new technology and integrate it in your business in a way that you do better business, because truth is, if you have a successful business without blockchain, you have a successful business. So the question is always, how can you leverage new technologies, blockchain, IoT, or whatever it is, to create your business better. And the more you run, the harder it is. This is why we now see a lot of companies that are really amazing. So for me, I think the one with the most potential right now is everything finance. And the reason for that is simple, because money is global, money is fast, and money moves to where it makes the most babies. So in this sense, I think all the DeFi products really a crazy, interesting angle as a business case.
Yeah, and there's some particular project that you see that is having mass adoption, and what kind of resources or things you see that make it special and that is causing that effect?
Again, what I've seen is that you use classic methods to driving customers. You have to. It's not only enough to have a fantastic and a brilliant tech team. This is very important to have it, but it's also important to have the business people around it to explain it. It's also important to have a marketing in place that gets there. This is the challenge, and this is, I think, the stepping stone to project getting out there and getting customers. So for me, there is a good reason why for now there is only a few companies that really manage to do that. And the most famous example for those. I was
going exactly there. Like a particular use case that you see that like some company that is doing its product that is having that is driving the scenes through the more traditional approach, not saying blockchain.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
I was asking more about like a particular project you see that is going in that direction in order to see an example.
I mean, Ethereum and Consensus is right here at the table. I think they're a fantastic example how you can bridge these worlds. And I've seen many presentations from you guys, and my understanding is that the sales cycles are extremely long. So it's nothing that is done overnight, but it's exactly that you need business people and connection pieces to do that. So I see, yeah, this is essentially the question. And the other thing is, the other successful projects are, I think, all these new DeFi projects that are building automated market makers and oracles that essentially have an inherent value proposition of saying we can shift the trade that is right now happening on centralized financial markets, and there's huge money going over there every day, money exchanged, stocks exchanged. So if you give this money a new opportunity to be more efficient, faster, and move around cheaper and earn higher yields, that's that's the use case for now, as I see it. Compared to that, everything we were talking about, like putting water on the blockchain and doing this and that, is still nice. It's still an amazing use case, even properties and all. But there's a reason why DeFi is taking off so fast, and other things are rather hard to adopt.
Yeah. So coming to consensus and following that path of use cases that they are creating, one of the very, very interesting things of the blockchain is about creating digital identities in a decentralized environment. Could you, Ludovic, explain us what a digital identity is and how you're working on that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Maybe just before I jump into it, I just want to mention that I agree very much with what Felix just said. A lot of people are getting excited about DeFi, and the main reason behind that is because there is a lot of innovation that is currently happening in the space in DeFi, and so people are following that. So that's the main aspect. I'm sorry, I have a phone that is ringing next to me. So yeah, so that's what is exciting. And when you were asking Felix before about mass adoption is happening at the moment, but currently it's more about money being moved into blockchain infrastructures rather than users. Users will come, users are already coming, but the exponential growth at the moment is more happening on capital. And so just to give an example, currently at Consensus, we have tokenized more than $1 billion worth of assets using Consensus technology. So this is exactly the core of what people should be excited about at the moment, DeFi and everything that's happening around it. I'm sorry, I'm coming back to decentralized identity now, which is obviously another important topic. So you really have to look at decentralized identity as a complementary technology to blockchain. Decentralized identity is using blockchain technology, but if you take a step back, what everyone around this table is currently believing in and trying to work towards is to create a more decentralized web. And so if you want to create a more decentralized web, you need blockchain technology in order to perform everything related to money in a more decentralized way. You need blockchain infrastructure with smart contracts in order to decentralize business logic in a trustless environment. And you need decentralized identities in order to have the foundation of all those interactions are going to be done between the different actors. And so decentralized identity in its essence is a very simple concept. You want to shift the way that people interact with platforms on the internet from a model where a user will be creating an account on a platform, and this platform will be responsible for the data and for the management of the identifier being used by the user, to a system where the user is creating by themselves their identifier and using that identifier to connect to multiple platforms. And so the first big benefit that you get out of this is the possibility to use one single identifier in order to connect to many different platforms. And the second big benefit that you get is leveraging the cryptography that has been used and developed over the years and then reused, obviously, in blockchain technology. You can create digital documents that are going to be signed by actors and that will encapsulate information about users. And those digital credentials that we call verifiable credentials in the current standards will be able to be verified by third parties in a decentralized way. And so this is what is so powerful currently about the decentralized identity ecosystem.
It enables a whole ecosystem of different applications in a centralized kind of governance, and it's quite amazing the potential that market has and how it is going to be in the future, right? All the projects coming together.
Exactly, and so Consensus has been since the beginning very much involved in those efforts. Maybe some of you know about Uport, which is one of our main products in this field, which is an identity wallet for anyone that can create then, using this wallet, an identity and use it to receive digital versions of documents. And so this is really exciting, mainly because it is so complementary to other technologies and other things that we develop, mainly in financial services, for example. But anything that is related to documents will, in the end, be using decentralized identity. When you look, for example, so I've been working a lot, obviously, with governments, but when you look at the European Commission at the moment, they are looking into ways to digitize diplomas. They are looking into ways to give better services, government services, to their citizens, and this goes through the digitization of many services. And digitizing services means digitizing documents, and this is where, again, the digital identity ecosystem comes back. So very excited about that, and obviously very excited about everything around DeFi at the moment. As Felix was saying,
it's an amazing industry with an amazing potential in order to revolutionize a lot of things and to cause positive social impact. Neil, and talking about these different use cases in blockchain for AR, today over 1 billion people in the world have some kind of disability, like a huge market. But accessible tech, assistive technologies, and inclusive design are still not a very explored business. And I strongly believe that inclusive design in these things should be like an industry standard by today, right? But how do you think that all these tools of blockchain and AR and identity could help this end?
So I think there are a number of things. So yes, between 1 and 1.3 billion. The number's going to keep growing because of our aging populations. So it is a huge market. Gartner estimated it was worth something in the region of $8 trillion globally. So not small amounts of money. So how do we utilize things like blockchain? Well, I think one of the things is identity, because when we're looking to support interoperability, a lot of people who are amongst that population of 1 to 1.3 billion are not obviously disabled. You don't look at me and think, oh, he's disabled, but I have dyslexia and ADHD, so it's a hidden disability, right? And those disabilities make you do things in different ways. They require you to, you may need help with certain things, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to disclose all of that publicly. I'm quite happy. I talk about it openly, but I'm an advocate in the space. So, using the identity software, a methodology that we just talked about is one way where you can register your needs and your preferences, and you can support interoperability with other tech whilst at the same time retaining privacy. So what you can do is you can give over only the pertinent information needed in order to support you during that transaction. The other thing that it can also do is looking on a wider scale and supporting stuff at sort of supranational level, is looking at how we implement legislation and how we support the flows of finance around the economies of inclusivity. For example, there's lots of legislation at the moment that requires you to do stuff some of that includes penalties, and I think that we need to be redressing the balance and looking at ways of also rewarding, and that requires trade. So this is a value exchange. So if organizations aren't participating in the inclusive economy, then they have to pay the fines or pay the subsidies, etc. But on the other hand, if you are, then the people that aren't doing it need to be subsidizing the work that you're doing to build the inclusive economy. So that then has loads and loads of complexity. And I think that blockchain is one way that you can manage that complexity of micro transactions to be able to transfer the funding and the resources into the places where it's needed. And I think that we can take models like carbon trading as an example, because essentially the stuff that people are doing right now, where they're making products that don't work for people with disabilities, that's an externality. We take the economic concepts, and an externality is like pollution. So if you apply the same models that we're applying in the sustainability world to the sort of inclusivity world, then you can apply technologies and methodologies to be able to make that value transfer. So I think that's one of the areas where I'm particularly interested in the discussions and the sort of technologies that we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And more the concept of the tokenization of everything, right? And how tokenization can enable different kinds of interactions. Eloisa, do you want to talk about like the tokenization of everything and like how we can apply those concepts to a lot of things? I don't know, like you've been part of so many projects and calling yourself a token model architect. I suppose you have like quite a formal image on that, right?
Yeah. So I guess you're referring a bit the tokenization process, which more or less is the same for. I mean, the phases are the same for every project. I usually go through 3 phases, and there's the discovery, design, and deployment, which right now I can say I can also use to divide the path that we've been following since the beginning of ICOs up until now. And right now we're much more in the deployment phase of the tokenization era, because this is the point where we're trying to understand how these tokens work, if they work, and how we can use other disruptive technologies like machine learning based algorithms to automatically correct all the failures that necessarily such ecosystems based on tokens are showing. But anyways, briefly, the discovery phase for any project is where I usually help the teams map the actors that are involved from a first restricted circle of actors, which is a minimum viable ecosystem, to the outer circles of the actors that, even if not directly included in the beginning, are going to have to adopt the token to get into the ecosystems. Otherwise, as Neil was saying, they're gonna pay the fines. They're gonna suffer losses from not being in it, and that is a mechanism that should always be included in such token designs. Then after mapping the actors, it is very important to map the value creation drivers and the value sharing flows among the actors, and I always try to focus on the biggest function of the tokens, which should be with hindering certain behaviors and incentivizing other behaviors in order for the value to flow better. And after this first phase, I become, what's most unique about my role is that I have to become sort of an interface between the market layer, which usually my colleagues and other marketing experts take care of in order to create the go-to-market strategy, and the ledger layer that the techies, so I call them, need to take care of, right? Because I feel like in the beginning of this era, the problem was that nobody was really in there, trying to market what these geniuses were doing on the tech, and where marketing geniuses were creating the market, nobody was really there to back up their concepts with real tech. And that's where you choose the protocol, what will work best, does it fit the market, does it fit the layer, and so on. And lastly, what I like most is the deployment, and that is what really I'm most excited about, especially when speaking about the governmental applications, institutional applications. And I've been discussing certain solutions also with Vitalik. He's very active on Twitter as well, and he's all about the ZPK and so on. But what we have,
I think we lost it. Well, I think what she was saying is super interesting, and I think. Oh.
I hope that that's where other technologies can really come in, and where we can stop talking so much, and we will more and more bring to the panels like this concrete examples.
Yep. And I think there are two things that are super important when we are deploying any kind of new economy, when we create a token, right? And I think those two things are like being able to create a community, but also to educate that community. Felix, can you tell us a bit about community and education and the efforts that you're doing? I think it's quite interesting, the work that you have been doing. So
Thank you. Yeah, happy to do that. I think in blockchain, everybody is always on the page to say we need to educate people. We need to educate people. As I said before, actually a great tech product is one where you don't really have to explain much and it's kind of self-explanatory. This is why, I mean, look at the very successful tech companies out there. They're creating exactly this product. So it's in blockchain, obviously there's a long way to go, and there is a lot to build to incentivize users to do anything else than trading. So if you are in a blockchain project, of course, and going what Elisa just said, it's highly important to really focus on these value flows and to identify who is actually the target group. And in many cases, you will realize that investors or traders are also an important group, which not necessarily match with your business.
I mean, I want to separate two things. One is like to use the blockchains to do things, and another the use cases that are actually in the blockchain, right? If we are talking about DeFi, for example, right, the most of the people enter into DeFi because they don't know what it means, but they see the potential of making money, but they don't know what it is. And I think education in any financial product is key, and that's why I was talking about that, and that's why I think it's important, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I think it's super important. You're right, but it needs to grab people somewhere. If I realize I can make money, most probably I'm willing to learn more by myself, which is something different than I really have to go out and educate someone. And to be very honest with you guys, I read about DeFi the first half of the year and didn't try it out. And the moment I tried it out, I realized I haven't understood the thing just by reading it, and it's super important to really try it out. And that's the moment when it really sucks you in. So the same goes for Dash. This is why we constantly really hosting meetups, and we we went out to say we don't want to host the meetup anymore with the PowerPoint presentation. No, let's do it let's have a drink at one of our merchants and let people try to use cryptocurrency, and let's incentivize them a bit by going to the merchant and say, no, I bring you a bunch of people regularly. We're doing meetups here, but can you give us a discount on that? Because I want people to try out paying with cryptocurrency. And matter of fact, we're in 2020, and who has paid anything with cryptocurrency, right? Even in these panels where I am, it's usually rare that you really did something. And for me, obviously, working for Dash and with Dash, it's one thing is to drive this adoption, and another thing is also to drive the coin, because of course we want to stay relevant. So you have to balance these things, and you have to find interesting ways. But I mean, for me, the story is simple to say, earning money with investing is nice. Spending money on a nice meal with your friends and some beers is most likely even nicer. So why not have the next meetup somewhere? So you have to find your angle is what I'm saying. And depending on the business case, I think we have something cool going on with Dash here. And also for me, what I mentioned at the beginning, building bridges now, and I want to have a wrap Dash on Ethereum because it opens the door to many new partners. It opens the door to many new use cases. But what I also want is that these guys on Ethereum, which don't have the merchant network, have an exit door to come to our Dash merchant and do something nice with it, right? So why not work together and use and also leverage on these amazing communities we have all built so far? This is also one thing. This is why I said at the beginning, I'm super happy to see blockchains coming now together, because there's all amazing communities around there, but they kind of live on their own islands, and they're not even able to take a boat to the other island. So this is where I see a lot of potential coming in.
Yeah, I think incentives are key for these things. I made my first buy with cryptocurrency in 2014, I think, like a shawarma. I was still not vegan at the time. Talking about incentives and gamification. So Ludovic, you have been also involved in multiple international efforts for gaming, right? And you're a board member of the Blockchain Game Alliance. Could you talk about like gamification and how all these things are revolutionizing, not just the blockchain space, but also like every industry?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, so the Blockchain Game Alliance is an industry that is looking at ways to incentivize the use of blockchain technology in the game industry. So that means creating more games that will be leveraging the technology, partially or totally. So this is very exciting because this opens many new opportunities for gamers in terms of what they can play. And so that is something that has been going on for 2 years now. And that was really at the forefront and is still really at the forefront of technology development. I will give one main example, which is the one of NFTs, so non-fungible tokens. In the gaming industry, NFTs are something that is very big because this is direct digital scarcity over items that can be unique. And so for a gamer, that's something that has a lot of value, and in the game ecosystem can be traded, that can be used in different platforms. And so that is definitely something that is at the forefront of technology development. And so that's why this is so important. I think your question was a bit on another aspect, which is the one of gamification. I think that what can be said is mainly that gamification has been used a lot in order to teach people about blockchain technology. I'm sure that some of the viewers here may have heard before of Crypto Zombies, which was basically one of the best, and is still one of the best tutorial for smart contract development. And so it's very important, obviously, to leverage gamification for education, because it's one of the most powerful tools that we have currently. And I think that actually this is not something that is particular to blockchain technology. Like blockchain is just using what works best. And so gamification has proven itself to be a very powerful tool. And so it's just normal that in this industry, we reuse what is considered as best practice.
And yeah, talking about games still, Neil, Atos has provided IT solutions to the Paralympic Games since 2002. Could you talk a bit about that and how you're preparing the next Paralympics, and what kind of technology solutions are you bringing this time?
Yeah, sure. So we do the Olympics too, so it's not just the Paralympics. So we're the IT partner for both. So we provide all of the sort of security infrastructure, all of the sort of real-time data, the IT backbone for all of the games. And obviously 2020 was meant to be the year where we celebrated in Tokyo. It's going to be 2021. But aside from the sort of the technology behind the games, every time there is a games, there is also the building of an entire mini city, which I think is super interesting as well, because it's an opportunity to build an inclusive city and experiment. So in London, they built an inclusive accommodation for all the athletes. That athletes village, the Olympic and Paralympic villages were inclusive, and each time there are efforts to embed new technologies into the Olympic villages. Now, we don't provide all of that because quite often that's the host nation that's doing this, but I know that for example, Toyota had been looking at autonomous vehicles to transport para athletes between events and so on. So Toyota actually have changed how they describe themselves from being a car company to a mobility company, and I think that this is it. We've reached a point where everything is becoming a service. So even though we're still making physical products, the product isn't the end game; it's the end result that is important. So in this case, it's getting from A to B and doing that inclusively and enabling people that may not be able to drive to still do that independently. So that's some of the tech that is sort of being embedded into how we envision the games. Obviously, with big projects like this, you start years and years in advance. So we're already working towards Paris 2024. And thinking about how we can make that particularly accessible, particularly important since we're headquartered in Paris. So no pressure. So, but there's also games around the games, and actually the IPC has been working on a game which would introduce people to parasport, and that will launch in line with the games. It would have been this year. It's quite exciting, but I can't say much more about it right now. But there's a really serious team of very well respected Japanese game designers that have worked on this, that have sort of a long track record. And if you like games like Final Fantasy, then this will be right up your street.
Yeah, that's amazing, and we should all think about everybody in every solution that we do, and everything that we start. So we are getting to the end of the panel, and I'm really grateful for having you all here. I think we could be talking for hours. There's so many interesting topics to talk with such amazing characters. So thank you all for being participants, and thank you all the viewers for having watched it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Big pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, is Hilton coming? Okay, so we'll have Hilton coming.
Hello, it's Hilton Super here. Thank you very much, Leon. That was a very, very interesting panel. You got a lot of insights from your colleagues who were joining you on the panel. I just want to do a bit of a recap before we go to our next event in about in 17 minutes. I just want to recap what we had today. We started this morning with the global business and startup digital tech landscape and the challenges and opportunities. And that was chaired by Eric van der Klee, who was a co-founder of Edenbase and the creator of Level 39 and the former advisor to the UK Prime Minister. He was joined by Kata Ochi, who was also a special advisor to the State Minister, business and political consultant, who's involved in filmmaking and television. And the esteemed Minister of State and Science and Technology, Noakazu Takamoto. Here, I remember when they were talking about essentially one of the key takeaways is the digitization and digital transformation in the Society 5.0 concept that Japan had instigated, and in particular the big suffering that they had in terms of the brain drain. And it was quite interesting that Eric, with his work that he had been doing with the UK government, had developed quite a few strategies to ensure that a lot of that talent came back to the UK, and really 10 years ago to where we are today, Silicon Roundabout came about, and they were essentially bringing a lot of that technology skill, and that brain drain ceased, and we had an inward track back to the UK. And following that, they were joined by in terms of the global startup digital tech landscape, and the challenges and opportunities in terms of, in a global context, what startups can do. And that was the two key members of that, three key members, which were Luisa Rubio Arribas, who was head of Wayra X, which is part of the Telefonica group. Very, very strong initiative by telcos, as we picked up. And she was joined by the CEO and founder of Bangladesh Startup Initiative, which is Tina Jabin, who has a long career in Silicon Valley, and now actually bringing the startup community and accelerating that in Bangladesh. And then, of course, amazing work done by the Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation for IT in Ukraine, Alexander Borinayakov. Sorry, apologies for not getting his name right. But essentially, I mean, what Ukraine has done, of course, they did suffer from the war with Russia a few years ago. Now they've really been accelerating, and some of the initiatives that Ukraine are doing in terms of the ultimate objective is to remove paper and go completely digital in terms of the bureaucracy of Ukraine. That was very, very interesting, and the massive work that Tina is doing in Bangladesh to grow the ecosystem. When they started with startups, they had a few, a handful. I mean, I think it was like 75 applications, and now they're receiving 1,000 applications for the assistance in startups in Bangladesh. Then, of course, Luisa Rubio from Wayra. I mean, incredible amount of work that Telefonica are doing globally in terms of bringing startups and actually building an ecosystem on a global context. That was incredible. Really, really proud to be able to listen to that. And then, of course, we were joined by a colleague of ours, Javed Khattak, who was the co-founder and CEO of Zix Properties, which essentially fractionalizes the investment in property, and some of the work that he did back in proof of concept. I brought that to the UK, and it's an FSA licensed business in terms of effectively the token and asset-backed tokens for the investment in property. Really, really amazing work that they're doing there. And he was joined by Kohei Kurihara, who's the co-founder of Privacy by Design Lab, and he's really part of with the government. He's part of the Blockchain Association and president of the Tokyo chapter. And he was joined by Edwin Dinder, who was the CDXO and vice president, government and public sector for the global business unit of Huawei Enterprises. And he was joined by Craig Skelton, who is with the Base Centre at the University of Edinburgh. The University of Edinburgh and us at Studium are we're working very closely together on various initiatives, particularly to do with the indices that we are building for sustainability for companies and for cities. And then of Armando Gonzalez, the CEO of Ravenpack. Now, Ravenpack is a very interesting company. They have essentially taken great data from, recognized media, and they're using it in the financial markets. And they're creating insights into that using AI to actually look at what these sentiments are, all based on various news feeds, and actually providing that information to us actually in terms of COVID-19 on the Cities ABC website. And then we moved on to an ecosystem digitization, decentralized digital assets, and DeFi, blockchain, and crypto. There was a very interesting discussion between Simon Cocking of the Irish Tech News and Babak Behaboudi, who's basically the co-founder of and CEO and head of global operations at Synchronium, which is based in Turkey. And there were some extensive discussions to do with, and also they were joined by, Sergei Kitarov, who's the founder of Listing, which helps to, and works in terms of crypto investments at Jets Capital. This was a great discussion in terms of the digitization of the new economies that we have at this present time moving forward, and looking at the adoption of digital assets, the investment in digital assets, the digitization of everything eventually. This was a very, very interesting discussion. And Peter Christensen also joined, and he was of JP Fund Services, and his contribution was enormous in terms of, as a, he says, I don't want to use the word, but, old people like us, we understand what the challenges are of digitization, what the opportunities are of digitization. And it was incredible how, the youth of today really, they use it as a utility, but they haven't actually understood the great need for it going forward. And then later on this afternoon, there was a very interesting discussion on education. This is the one I really, really enjoyed. It says, how can governments, businesses, universities develop education policies and solutions to support business and society? This was chaired by David Siegel, who's a founder of Cutting Through the Noise. Great title. He was joined by Dr. Carter K. Sani, chairman of the Scottish High International School and a member of the board of the Special Olympics. I mean, his foresights in terms of education and adapting education was incredibly inspiring. He was joined by an amazing man, Mark Buckley, who is working. He's an SDD advocate and expert for WEF and global food reformist. And he's based in Berlin. He's worked with the Berlin School for Sustainability, Futures, and Applied Sciences. He's a professor there, and an advocate of, using technology to do the things that need to be done, but actually to really work with family and enjoy life and use technology to really embrace a lot of things. And then Dr. Vishal Talwar, who's the Dean and Director of Bill Munjal University, great contribution by him in terms of how education is going forward. And of course, unfortunately, Dr. Tanju Nanda, and he has a few technical issues. He's a professor of school management and studies in Uttar Pradesh, India, and the Associate Dean of Economics. And the key takeaway really from the education was, with David Siegel as lead, was at the end of the day is that education is continuous, skills training is continuous. The paradigms that we have at the moment in terms of education are the old linear third industrial revolution tenet of training people for specific dirty jobs is not going to cut it. We're going to have a high middle class of uneducated, well, when you say uneducated people, they're educated, but their jobs won't be useful. So anyway, I've thank you very much indeed for staying with us. We are 1 or 2 minutes away from our next panel, and that's looking at cybersecurity, in particular in terms of governments and cities and interplay between AI, big data, and Internet of Things. It's going to be chaired by Agia Chib from Secra, and he's going to be joined by Antio Santos from Atos and Shamir Tahu, who's the global CTO of Accubits. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you at the next panel.